And we have an update from Diakonos Oncology, Inc., which is a private company and a recipient of FDA's Fast Track designation, a clinical stage biotech company developing a groundbreaking Dendritic Cell Vaccine for difficult to treat cancers. Please welcome CFO and Head of Business Development, Anthony Baldor. Welcome, Anthony. Let's hear your update today.
Hi, thanks, Anna. That's right, Anthony Baldor here, CFO of Diakonos Oncology. We're driving a new frontier in cancer vaccines. So we originally presented to Emerging Growth back in June as the formal kickoff for our Series A. So this is an update. But first, to remind you all and any newcomers who we are, what we're doing and why it matters. So we're developing an exciting and highly differentiated double-loaded dendritic cell vaccine therapy discovered at MD Anderson Cancer Center in Houston. The critical discovery that the Diakonos founding team made is that priming the immune system to generate a robust anti-cancer response requires both tumor protein and tumor mRNA at the same time. So that not only mimics a viral infection for the dendritic cells, but it also provides the immune system with the full tumor antigen spectrum for use in its fight against the disease. So that's the big idea. We have a ton of preclinical data supporting that novel mechanism. And to date, we've generated clinical successes in some of the most challenging cancers, including glioblastoma and pancreatic cancer, among many others. So in fact, we've now have data in over 70 patients across more than 24 different tumor types. But our largest and most mature data set is in 16 newly diagnosed glioblastoma patients, which were treated in a phase 1 study that was completed in April of this year, last patient, last dose. And back in June, we were reporting a 91% 12-month survival, which is astonishing considering the patient population we're treating. The expected survival for this cohort is really less than 53%. Well, as of the updated August 29th data cutoff, that number has improved to 93%. And the statistic is now calculated with 15 out of the 16 patients now being evaluable for that endpoint. So that number won't change much at this point. So I'm going to cover the GBM data in a little more detail in a few minutes. But it's worth mentioning now the addressable market for this technology is huge. The GBM opportunity alone could generate several $1 billion of revenue annually at peak if approved. But you don't really need to take my word for it. Merck just made headlines buying a small preclinical company called Modify Bio for their new targeted GBM therapy, which may help one specific subset of these patients. And that deal went for up to $1.3 billion. So this really proves that pharma is still very interested in GBM. Our fantastic data to date, the survival data, as well as an excellent safety profile, won US FDA Fast Track designation for the GBM program in October of 2023, and for the PDAC program in May. Also notable, the GBM program was awarded orphan drug designation in January. And then regarding our finances, we raised an upsized $11.4 million seed round, with the majority of that committed in the first quarter, and a final $300,000 sneaking in August when we press released the final close. But I think our June presentation was celebrating $11.1 million in seed financing. So that's an improvement. But this cash will carry us into the second half of 2025, which puts us in a pretty strong position to close out the current Series A financing. So as a final overview detail before we get into updates, we're currently expecting to dose our first glioblastoma patient in, oops, I think I accidentally advanced this. We're expecting to dose our first phase 2 glioblastoma patient in the coming months. All right, so the good stuff. Key updates. My key takeaway today really for you all is that this is a team and a technology you can bet on. We're in a sprint and development is going incredibly well. So I'll talk about 4 topics today before opening up for any questions from the audience. These are the maturing data, building a company, our operational progress, and fundraising momentum. So you get a real sense of how we move. Starting with the maturing data. So here's an update to the swimmer plot that I showed in June. As a reminder, all patients in dark and light teal are a poor prognosis patient type with unmethylated MGMT promoters. Notice that's all but one of these patients. And then the dark teal are patients that would have been ineligible for other clinical trials run by our competitors, for example, Northwest Bio. These patients had additional poor prognostic indicators, such as tumors that could not be fully resected. We call that a subtotal resection, disease that progressed before it could be treated, or age greater than 70. And we now have these data confirmed by radiology, so we can be really confident in these patients' status. And I mentioned those wide open enrollment criteria because they really matter. So we essentially allowed all comers into the study, and median survival expectations for those dark teal patients really is 7 to 8 months. And so that's marked by the dark teal vertical line there. And despite enrolling this incredibly hard to treat population, we've got current projected median survival here of 19.7 months. The other vertical line, that teal line, marks the survival expectations for the general unmethylated GBM population. That's at 12.7 months. And so at this August 29th data cutoff, all but 2 patients have surpassed the survival expectations, which is huge. And it's a big difference from the data I showed back in June, when only about half of the patients had crossed that line. So again, this is showing 93% 12-month survival versus the expectation for general unmethylated GBM survival at 53%. And that number, of course, is much lower for that dark teal population. But this is what I mean when I say, the results are really astonishing. Safety is excellent. No CRS, no cytokine release syndrome, no ICANS, which is a cell therapy-related neurotoxin. We don't see any of that. No threat of secondary cancer because no genetic engineering. No side effects from preconditioning. All these are common with CAR T and TIL therapy, and no side effects from high-dose IL-2, which is used in TILs. But as a reminder, because of that great safety and tolerability, we expect DOC-1021 to be made available through the low-cost outpatient setting and in community oncology centers. So market adoption could be very high. And I should mention, in addition to these cost-reducing measures, the lack of genetic engineering, the lack of any Miltenyi royalties, both drastically reduce long-term COGS expectations versus CAR T and other cell therapies. So that's an important concern for investors these days with cell therapy. So our COGS should be quite low. One more data slide. I mentioned earlier we've treated over 70 patients. So that includes the 18 GBM patients, 5 phase 1 pancreatic cancer patients, and now over 50 treated at our partner's compassionate use facility. Many of these patients are early in their treatment, but a few that have got long-term follow-up are providing us some great patient case studies that are guiding portfolio strategy decisions and enabling partnership discussions for non-dilutive capital. In particular, and I don't have time really to review those cases here, but in particular, we've got great case studies for pancreatic, prostate, urothelial, kidney cancer, all that are working well for us at this time. But the key takeaway here really is that bottom line. Our disease control rate is very high for the population as a whole, 49 patients, which includes 38 that came to us with stage 4 cancer, average follow-up of 9.5 months, and almost 3 out of 4 of these patients have stable disease or better, 10 patients with no evidence of disease at last follow-up. So these are incredibly motivating data points, and I mentioned earlier, this company is in a sprint. So we recently made several new additions to the team. That includes CMO Laura Aguilar, who was previously at Candel Therapeutics. She was an attending physician at Dana-Farber. She was lead on 14 oncology clinical trials. We just added a 30-year cell therapy veteran as head of manufacturing, and we'll be able to disclose who that is in January, I believe. We've also added a head of ClinOps and a project manager. So we're committed to growing at a deliberate and financially responsible rate. And these 4 critical hires, I think, demonstrate that. Finally, on the company building side here, we finalized selection of the contract research organization that will run our phase 2. Prevail's been an incredible partner already. To date, they've been incredibly easy to work with. They're integrating with our team very quickly. They're really taking the ball and running with it. Okay, so Diakonos really needs a partner like that because we are a fast company. So for the GBM phase 2 study, we're riding an incredible wave of excitement for our technology and data within that GBM medical community. We expect to dose our first patient in the coming months. We now have got 15 sites recruited, 3 of which are already undergoing site qualification. We expect to, at least 2 of those activated in very early 2025. CDMO partner Cellepont finalizing potency and release testing, integrating onto automation. The demonstration and engineering runs are scheduled. So that's good. Key critical thresholds, they'll also be ready in the first quarter of 2025. As for PDAC and the pipeline, we have made significant strides. We've transferred that investigator-sponsored IND to the company earlier this month. We're amending the protocol, and now we expect to complete enrollment for that study next year. For new indications, we've identified the top priorities, and we'll disclose them soon, but right now that's confidential. But a lot of progress here. So finally, and this is my last slide, again, the team, this is really a team worthy of investment. We're not wasting any time. We kicked off in June At this time, we've got 3 investment groups in deep due diligence, full VDR access, extensive Q&A correspondence. Today, we've already got $2.4 million in cash wired on a convertible note agreement towards that Series A, an additional 10% soft circle. So this is moving rapidly. We're optimistic we'll be able to identify a lead investor early on. So the final detail, and this is key for the emerging growth audience, given how quickly the clinical trial rates are onboarding, we know patient recruitment will be equally fast. We've opened a $10 million convertible note to bring in some capital ahead of the formal Series A close and allow us to start treating those patients as soon as possible. So we'd love to talk to you guys about that. Use my contact information at the bottom here to follow up with me. And Anna, do we have any time? That's the sort of end of the prepared comments. Do we have time for any questions?
Well, let's see. We do have lots of questions for you, but I don't think we have any time, so we can get to our next presenter. But we will send you all of these questions for you so you can answer on your own. But that just means you got to come back and give us more time next time.
That's perfect. Yeah, Anna, thanks very much. And thanks to all the listeners out there.
Thank you. Important work you're doing, and we'll see you again soon.
Appreciate it.
All right, everyone, stay with us. We'll be right back.